on the top part of the table and about 6 on the bottom. So the reason the subtotals are there, so the top part of the table, everybody in area I, every taxpayer pays into all of those services. The ones on the bottom are where, depending where you live and your address, you'll only pay into some of those services. So this summary shows the change from 24 through 25 through 26, both in assessment and requisition value. And then the subtotals area there in the bottom, you'll see for the top part a 5.5% taxation increase for those services for area I. Next, we have area J. So almost the same list of common services on the top, 4.6% taxation increase on those. And the bottom, there's additional 3 or 4 defined area services. Most of them are, that's because of the 4 different fire services in area J. And this is the taxation sample for City of Castlegar. So these are the RDCK taxes for City of Castlegar. So there's about 8 services there, and the average increase of 10.2%, which is mainly driven by increase in general assessment.
CK? Yep. The
Yes.
budget meeting? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Welcome to the meeting.
I can't believe this is it.
So general administration and the arena service S222 as well as regional parks also has are 2 of the higher increases, and we'll talk about those services later on in the presentation. So this is an example of a rural tax bill from area F. It shows all the various taxes paid by a rural taxpayer, including school, provincial, rural, and police tax, and hospital tax as well. The local services on the bottom circled in red. The F Central Kootenay for these areas would be either I or J Central Kootenay, and that would be the line that shows all of the services that all the areas participate in. And then for the defined area services, they'll be listed individually. And in this case, this taxpayer only pays fire as an individual service. So here's the assessment taxation summary across all the electoral areas and the municipalities across the regional district. So it shows the assessment increase 25 over 26, so an average of 2.64. And so basically mirroring that graph I showed, area I with a reduction, J with a slight increase, Castlegar with almost a 3% increase. I'm just going to try and move this guy. And then the, not totally visible here, but the net change in taxation for area I is 3.5%, J 2.2%, and the City of Castlegar 9.1%. So overall outlook for 2026, projected average tax increase 5.1% across the regional district. That will of course depend where you live. Right. So the high range, I'm just going to go back, was area H with about a 9% increase in the rural areas, and Silverton with 11.4% in for municipalities. And then it'll also depend on your individual circumstances, and you and your neighbor might have different rate increases as well, depending on the change in your assessed value. So the $4.82 million in total tax requisitions for 26 are actually $1.6 million lower than we forecasted for 2026 last year. CPI increase on staff salaries and director stipends is 2.5%. We have some union positions that have a 3.4% increase this year. decreasing interest rates are reducing interest rate charges and short-term loans, but also reducing investment income. And the recently announced provincial budget will have an impact on costs, including addition on PST on some services that didn't have them before. So this version or version of the budget doesn't include those changes, as we're still reviewing the impacts of the budget. And then on a bigger scale, sort of the global political climate, conflicts, foreign trade, including tariffs, counter tariffs, potentially driving increased procurement costs or supply chain issues, including energy costs. And if we get into a wider downturn, it could lead to some lower revenues for the regional district. Fluctuating Canadian dollar also could provide some challenges. On the other hand, artificial intelligence presents some opportunities. Technology is evolving quickly. Use of the RDCK has increased, although fairly limited, and we do have AI guidelines. We made AI guidelines available to employees to be mindful of accuracy, privacy, and other concerns. Any questions so far? Okay. I'll move over to jump into four graphs that show the what the regional district looks like for as a whole for both tax requisition and expenses. So this first one's a pie chart, tax requisition by segment. As you can see, the largest individual one by a fair stretch are the major rec facilities, 28%. If you add in other community services, parks, museums, and libraries, were about 40% for sort of the parks, recreational, and cultural services. And then fire and rescue is next at 21, resource recovery at 14, and then transit at 6. So how did requisition change year over year? Where did the $2.7 million increase come from? Mainly driven by an increase. So this is a waterfall graph. Rec facilities at 662, followed by fire, transit, general admin, resource recovery, and community services. So I'll talk a bit about general admin in a couple slides. And next, where's RDCK expenses, non-capital expenses breakout? Wages and benefits, 38%, services, 18. Services are repair, maintenance, accounting, legal type services. Reserve contributions, 13. So those are for contributions to fund future capital asset repair and replacement. Debt servicing is next, then grants and miscellaneous at 8%. And waterfall graph for expenses, $3.9 million increase, with the bulk of it made up of a $3.5 million increase in reserve contributions to fund upcoming asset repair and replacement. Then followed by wages and benefits, which is mainly inflationary increase, maintenance and miscellaneous. And then we had 3 expense types that are reduced: debt servicing, contract services, and grants. Okay, we'll go through some individual services. So general administration is a RDCK-wide service. This includes corporate admin, finance, IT, human resources, office of the CAO, and municipal directors. It's seeing a 22% taxation increase in 26. This is primarily driven by a $263,000 reduction in prior year surplus carried forward. So there was less surplus carried forward into 26 as compared into 25. We also have $130,000 slated for, upgrades and changes to our accounting software that were mandated by our accounting software provider. We still have some housing availability issues that impede recruitment efforts, and a number of other IT projects in the works. Next is Service S101, Rural Admin. So it's seeing a 22% taxation decrease, mainly driven by some interest income adjustments. So this service includes bylaw enforcement, so noise, animal control, unsightly nuisance, etc. The bylaws vary by electoral areas, so not all areas have the same bylaws. And the bylaw and building manager is shared between two services, which leads to some cost savings. So there'll be some updates to bylaws this year, as well as some new dog control service for those 4 areas. A portion of rural director stipends and travels in this service. And the other thing to note, the major change to this service this year, in this year's budget, is that regional fire, which is the regional fire chief deputies, central training, all those costs have been moved to an allocation service, A107, so they can be shown and separately. And so the overall cost of this service has decreased substantially. Next service is GIS, Geospatial Information Systems. So this service mainly provides public maps and digital mapping, including other services such as landfill surveys, addressing 911 data, fire services, emergency management, and evacuation mapping. So that map to the right is an evacuation map from a fire, a large fire, wildland fire near Agenta from 2 summers ago. So this service is seeing 25% taxation increase this year. So driven by some required upgrades to systems, some new hardware, and this service is also working on a grant-funded NG911 transition project. And G911 is New Generation 911, which is a digital version versus analog. And the service is also seeing an increase in general admin fees, correcting a prior year undercharge. Building inspection seeing a 16% taxation decrease. Permit revenue was much stronger than expected in 2025, so just under $1 million versus $900,000 budget. And so there's review and drafting new moderate. Oh, good evening.
Sorry, I apologize. I was going to go online and stuff. I'm on the tail end of a bug, so I said, no, I better come in first.
Sure.
No, I'm good. I'm in there. Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks. Stay away from Brian.
Okay.
Or do you want to introduce yourself?
Now, yes, the late Andy David, our director area. I said no mountain. Pardon?
Not late, tardy.
Tardy, but tardy. I tell you, I got myself
Not being just
from behind my computer, and I said, I'll come in person.
not
Not thank God. Not late yet. Sorry.
okay.
Okay. All right, just halfway through building inspection here. So updating some of the bylaws, digital archive and paper files, and as well as replacing 2 end-of-life building inspection vehicles. Planning and land use, so this just applies to areas I and J. Service S104, so responsible for administration of zoning, land use and development applications, development of long-term community plans, and administrating land use and zoning bylaws. Basically, an inflationary 3% taxation increase. A good portion of this service's work is funded by provincial funding to address items such as housing regulation. And the service will be updating some bylaws as well as some regulations and OCPs. Next, we have West Resource Recovery. So this service is for Castlegar I+J, as well as through the Slocan Valley and up through the Cusp. So the regional district is divided into 3 resource recovery or waste management areas: East, Central, and West. So in the West, this includes transfer stations, recycling depots, landfills, as well as transportation of materials. This service is showing an 8% taxation and 6.4% tipping fee increase this year. Transitioning the Cusp landfill to a transfer station and closing it, the landfill, and construction renovation of a waste pile in the Cusp, closure of legacy landfills that some of them predate the regional district, organics regulation phase in and diversion. A second scale and new tipping area is in the planning stages for Woodishenya, as well as expressions of interest for eco depots in Castlegar and a Cusp. Okay, I'm going to take a break now and hand it over to Craig online.
Hi, Yev. Hi, everybody. I'll speak to a few of the parks and rec slides. And Yev, is there a keyword you want me to say, or just next slide, please?
Next slide will work.
Okay, I'll go through. So we have inside of service S222, which is one of our services in recreation, arena parks, and operational costs. We have a 19.4% increase in taxation, and we'll talk about that as it relates to our asset management and capital investment in the Castlegar complex. But in the parks highlights, there are 5 parks in the service. The work that we're showing here is essentially some of the high level work for those parks. So for Glade, we have parks improvements and upgrades currently in the planning stage. We did community engagement over the last couple of years, and we're moving into more environmental and archaeological assessment for that. In Pass Creek, we have a new campground house. Unfortunately, we lost the services of the previous host who had been there for a number of years, and we were sad to see them go. And so we're currently procuring a new campground host, and we're in the stage of an interviewing right now. So that's moving along. We also have ongoing maintenance and improvements at Pass Creek. And then at Robson, at the boat ramp, we are replacing some decking boards and some signage there. Those are some of the highlights for the park service. Next slide, please. Yep.
You're not gonna sit down.
Also in the parks, in the regional district parks, region wide, we're looking at a parks, trails, and water access strategy. That project has been on the go for a while now, and the strategy will define priorities, policies, and direction for regional and community park services. And we've got a consultant working. We have a small committee working on that, and Director Hanegraaff, I believe, is part of that. We have completion is anticipated for spring 2026, and we'll have a final report to be reviewed by the board, followed by external review and public engagement. So we'll bring those results to the communities and the people with regional parks in their area. Director Hanegraaff, did you have a question, or were you just saying hello?
No, I was just saying, I'm on the parks, trails, water access, and I think we're having sort of our finalization meeting week after next. And so I think we'll be hopefully ready to come to the board with that in April, maybe May, depending on how busy people are. But yeah, I just wanted to give a bit of an update on that. And there's a fly in the room.
Thanks, Director Hanegraaff. Next slide, please. Yep. So as part of the tax increase for service S222, we've got a fairly robust capital plan for the complex. Some of that was work that was started in 2025 that we planned and designed and engineered and had a budget for approved by the board and the commission, but we weren't able to deliver on that work. So there's a larger project list than there was last year, but it's compounded from work that wasn't done last year plus this year. So we're going to do another HVAC unit. That's a rooftop unit, essentially a heating and cooling unit on the roof of the facility. We have $450,000 to do a low E ceiling and a roof insulation project, which was one we started last year. And the good news about this is the tender just closed, and there will be a communication going to the commission letting them know about a board report coming to recommend an award. And the good news is that the tender came back well below budget. So we have some good numbers and some good savings on that project. So I'll just keep that at a high level for now. We also have a arena door replacement. If you've been in and around the facility the last couple of weeks, you've noticed that we've replaced a lot of the doors on the side of the building on I believe that'd be the west side. or the south side, if I remember. And so that project is almost complete. We're also, and I'll talk about the secondary arena in a second. The arena complex roof repairs as part of a roofing assessment we did a couple of years ago. So that scale or that scope of work is being done on the arena side. And that's in addition to the arena roof work that was done last year and the year before. That was a coating for the metal roof, the curved roof on the arena. But these roof repairs are the flat roof, so the torch on roll out type roofing material. We have a Columbia Basin Trust grant for $50,000 for arena accessibility lift, and we're looking at options for that right now as far as structural design and architectural needs for that lift in the arena to provide accessibility to the bleachers. We have the Glade Regional Park project, as I mentioned earlier, is $100,000 in service S222. That's been ongoing for a number of years, and we're getting to the as I said, the environmental assessment and archaeological assessment phase. And then we also renovating some of the offices, some of the admin offices to do a number of improvements to the layout, the safety and security, and also look at some mitigation of some air quality issues. But the big project on the go that's currently in the design phase, and we're looking at adding a second arena. There will be a referendum. We're hoping for the fall to coincide with the upcoming municipal election, and there's a lot of work that has to be done prior to that. But we're spending $280,000 on architects and other fees for that project that will be able to inform a referendum, so that the voters of City of Castlegar and Area J can determine if they want to borrow the money to do that project. So all in the capital cost for S222 total $2.155 million. Next slide. Yep.
So, hold on. Question. Craig, is it okay to ask questions?
Sure,
Yes.
Director Davidoff.
So the arena low E ceiling and roof insulation project, you're saying is coming in under budget. How much under budget? And will that help offset taxation?
Well, it was a public opening, so I can mention it if people were paying attention. But the low bid right now, and we're just determining if the low bid is certainly a qualified bid, and based on what I've been told by project managers that recommendation is going to the board. But if we budgeted $450,000, the bid came in at $280,000, and I think that other costs, including PM and engineering, I think it's going to be about $86,000 under budget.
Okay, and would that, I guess, question to Yev then, would that then offset some taxation in service S222?
Actually, I'll defer to Craig as
Okay,
it's either being probably funded by reserves or borrowing, but anyway.
Yeah, through the chair there's no chair. The project was actually funded last year, Director Davidoff, so it could be a significant surplus plus maybe 5 or 10% added to this year just to make sure we had enough. So I'll try to determine if that has a reduction on taxation, but until the board makes that contract award, it's just numbers right now. But we intend, we're hoping we're going to save $86,000 on that project.
but there'll be enough time before we pass the budget to understand the potential impact.
Yeah, it will. Yes, we'll try to determine that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hanegraaff, I think you had your.
Yeah, this is, does it go straight to the board or does it come to the rec commission?
So, yeah, we didn't have because of the timing of the closing of the tender, we didn't get to the commission. And what I will do is I'll send the commission an email tomorrow letting them know of what the board report will say, just so they have prior knowledge. But it is good news. It's a straightforward issue for tender. And the engineers have recommended that we award it to the low qualified bid, which, as I said, comes in under budget.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Usually it comes to commission first, right?
Yeah. Next slide, please. Yep. So the other service S227, aquatics and fitness, a proposed taxation decrease of 10%, and a lot of that is due to the fact that we reconfigured taxation for S222 as far as the capital and asset management side. And there was a small surplus, I believe, in S227. This year, because of some finishing off the pool roof repair from last year, there's a small indoor scope of work that unfortunately will take 4+ weeks. And so we're intentionally closing the pool for 4 to 6. Well, 6 weeks is the planned shutdown, and that's to allow us to get that interior roof work done. And we'll also, in the meantime, be doing $100,000 of pool shutdown work, and the majority of that will probably be for the UV system, for the disinfection system. Then we'll also put some labor to cleaning and other tasks that need to be done to spruce up and the natatorium, the pool area, to make sure that we make good use of that 6-week shutdown. And then we also have, as part of an ongoing asset management assessment for the recreation complexes in Creston, Nelson, and Castlegar, $60,000 is allocated for in-depth facility condition assessments. So with the $60,000 in Castlegar, $60,000 in Nelson, and $60,000 in Creston, plus $20,000 for the Creston Library, that project will total $200,000 for regional work that will inform have a more detailed look at our capital investment and asset management planning for those critical assets. Next slide, please. Yep.
Yeah, can you go back to the previous slide? Just want to ask another question. So we are looking at a 19.4% taxation increase in service S222, but we're looking at a 10% reduction in service S227. And basically 19.4% is $550,000. So if we have say, just for a rough measurement, a $90,000 reduction in taxation in service S222, that'll take us down to $460. So Ev, what's the math on that? Then we end up with what?
15%
15%.
19.
And then, but with the 10% reduction in service S227, what happens is that the combined figure is a lot more palatable. Is that accurate, Ev, what I said?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it over to Tricia.
You. Good evening. So we wanted to report on a couple of programs that went through a significant overhaul in the last year that had some really great success stories. So in January of 2025, we did an overhaul of our leisure access and inclusion policy, which includes 4 components. So it includes the leisure access program, which is a financial aid subsidy-based program for those that are in financial need to access recreation services. It also has a component around supporting caregivers, bringing people to the facility to access services. It has something around providing low-cost recreation opportunities, which we have coined as our cheer programs, also kind of tied into our sponsorship program, where businesses are offering or supporting us to provide free services in the community. And then there's a 4th component around what we're classifying as the vulnerable emergent situations that people might find themselves in. So whether it's people that are where shelter is an issue, where they're in a totally different vulnerable sector, or are people that are in an emergent situation like emergency foster care, emergency transition, all that type of service. So this whole program was developed to support those people. So in the cheer program, so we roughly run those about once a month, 10 months a year. And in those programs, those with any type of participation can come for $2. If you're a leisure access pass holder, you can access those services for free. On the other side, so the leisure access program, so to date, that program runs from June 1st to May 31st every year. And across the district, there are 708 people enrolled in that program. Currently for adults, there's $82,000 roughly allocated in subsidy for people to access services. And to date, roughly $54,000 of that 82 has been utilized by people participating in services. On the youth side, there's about $34,000 allocated for youth to participate in services, and where Right now, today we have about 11,000 of that being utilized. What's really great and a success story about this program is on the youth side. Through the program revamping, it allowed children to access things like summer camps, swimming lessons, or other registered services that were not previously part of the program. So that's been a wonderful success story, and certainly is a program that continues to get evaluated. There'll be probably a report that goes to the all-rec meeting in April, which will evaluate some of the details of that program to continue to see if there's any further changes to that policy required.
Patricia, I just want to thank staff and I know Director Vandenberg and I worked in the review of the leisure access program. It's really complicated, and so it was kind of really interesting work because it was complex. But at the end of the day, we came up with something that the board approved in terms of our most vulnerable residents being able and youth being able to access programming. So that's, you know, it says leisure access program, but it's really focusing on our most vulnerable residents.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that don't know the program previously, it was managed a little bit differently, where in this case, what we're really trying to do is develop a system that gets the financial need to the right people. And so in this case, and ensure that the right people are then able to access all of the services that other people would also be typically enjoying. So it's a continued work in progress, but it does have some great success stories and people do seem to really appreciate it. So on the recreation side, so just a couple of highlights that we report out on at the Recreation Commission yearly. So this is coming off of the programming report from, I believe it was in February that we provided this information. So in the bottom chart over here, it's comparing user fee information from memberships and admissions from 2024 and 2025. So you can see that from a membership side of things, which is the blue bar, we've had slightly less memberships sold and slightly less admissions sold over the year. What's interesting about 2024, I think it was 2024, when we changed how punch passes were managed, there was an artificial inflation in revenue. So there's a small correction in that hopefully we'll sort of be able to track better over time. But generally speaking, in 2024, we recorded about 70,400 visits, where in 2025, just shy of 64,000 visits to the facility. So certainly our programming and marketing teams are continuing to look at different ways to draw people to the facility in all kinds of different ways, while we continue to have competing businesses and activities in the community that we're trying to find our place in the world to satisfy people's recreational interests. On the rental side, the story is a little bit different. So we've had in 2024, you can see is in the orange, and in 2025 is in the green. So we had slightly less rental usage of rooms. We have some rationales to why we think that is occurring, but generally speaking, actually in the first part of this year, it's tracking higher than the previous year. So it's one of these kind of strange ones that we continue to watch, where when you look at the pool and the arena, generally when service levels stay the same and we're seeing the same types of usage of the facility, you should anticipate that these numbers don't change that much, because there's only so many different groups or people you can put on the ice or in the pool at any given time. So unless our hours change dramatically, then maybe those stats would change over time. On the programming side, by numbers, we just thought there'd be some interest in some stats. So we've had 465 different children participate in summer camps. We've had 808 people participate in swimming lessons, and about 3,200 people participate in fitness classes in 2025. So overall, there's certainly lots of interest in the facility. We continue to adapt in this building as to what the interests are and how to best utilize spaces, and continue to watch what goes on in the community with, you know, we've got different buildings, like a brand new beautiful visitor center across the street that's offering meeting rooms, and a private fitness sector down the street offering services. And we continue to find where our best services to the community. I believe, yeah, that might be the last.
So. Okay. Thank you, Tricia. Okay, we'll jump back into some other service, including water utilities. So service S256 is West Robson Water, seeing both a 10% parcel tax and user fee increase, basically to fund future projects. Completed last year was a line replacement at a cost of 175,000, and this year working on a completion and design for replacement of the rest of the line, and then as well as some repairs to the reservoir and generator. A bit of a smaller service, Lucas Road Water, 247, no parcel tax increase, but a 3.5% base charge increase and 5% water metered consumption rate increase. Emergency planning is, this is areas I and J. City of Castlegar has their own emergency planning department. So Service S163 is one of the 8 emergency planning services at the regional district. So basically we have one allocation service, A101, and all those costs are distributed to the 8 different emergency planning services. So it's seeing for I and J 1.6% taxation decrease to 146,000. And major work in this service has been continued implementation of the new Emergency and Disaster Management Act, otherwise known as EDMA. So this includes updating emergency plans, risk assessments, business continuity plans, some multi-jurisdictional planning underway, aligning bylaw policy procedures and templates, and expansion of the neighborhood emergency preparedness program, as well as Indigenous engagement, which is part of EDMA. Upgrading emergency support services capacity, modernizing the systems of the operations center, as well as rolling out Fire Smart programs. Next, we have 911 communications. This is a region-wide service, except for the 3 larger municipalities. And so this service is seeing a 5% taxation increase this year, driven by rising costs and declining external revenue. So a good portion of the funding for the service used to be the 911 levy on landlines. And as people are dropping landlines and moving to mobile phones, there's less revenue available. Local government has been lobbying provincial and federal governments to change that, but has not been successful yet. So there's a small adjustment to the general admin fee. The expenditure increases are primarily due to higher contracted services costs for 911 dispatch, which is in the central Okanagan, and as well as the fire dispatch in just outside Prince George. And so the funding is for as we talked about previously, for GIS services to support the integration of Next Gen 911. And there's 4 capital projects planned for this service this year, mainly to upgrade repeater or antenna repeater stations for radio access in areas that aren't served by cell phones for emergency services. So we'll jump into fire protection. There's several services in the area. So for areas I and J, so a few region-wide initiatives for the RDCK fire protection services, including continuing multi-year replacement of personal protective equipment for regulatory requirements, utilizing CBT, Small Community Wildfire Readiness Grants, and community emergency preparedness funds, and as well as continuing capital reserve contributions. So the first department will address is Terry's Pass Creek, Service S137 in Area I, seeing a 6.7% taxation increase in 26. Focus on training to meet Office of the Fire Commissioner and provincial requirements. A down payment will be made probably the next couple of months for a new fire engine that will be delivered for next year, as well as planning a new wildland truck for Pass Creek in 2026.
Yeah, I just want to speak to this one, if that's okay. We lobbied really hard, the Union of BC Municipalities really hard to be able to use community works grants to pay for fire trucks. And we're successful. Unfortunately, we were just a little bit too late and we ended up borrowing money to buy a fire truck for Terrace. And so we couldn't use community work grants to pay for that. So, and there was no retroactive application of that because we checked into that. However, we also lobbied very hard for you to ability to use our area I community, not just area, but electoral area and other community works grant funds for wildland trucks. They made a decision saying wildland trucks are not fire trucks. And we're going, how is it not a fire truck? So what's happened is that we are actually looking, and this is something that we need with the wildfire risk that we have. If you can't get into the bush with a fire truck, your normal tenders aren't going to be out there in the boonies, right? So the new wildland truck for Pass Creek, and we're actually looking for something for Terry's as well. We've got a space issue in Terry's, but we are trying to fund, and I've allocated up to $250,000 of community works grant funds to pay for that wildland truck. So staff is working on that right now. We're hoping to get that put to bed here real quick. So really good news. And the fire service, just so everyone knows, that is a top priority for us in Area I. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you, Director Davidoff. So several other services, including all four for Area J. Robson seeing a 1% taxation increase. A new rescue truck is being planned for this year. Urishenya, 0% taxation increase, which is largely because of prior year surplus, and a replacement fire engine is also planned for this year. And then a couple smaller contracts. Hoodoo contract is fire protection provided by the RDKB for that easternmost portion of Area J, seeing a 14% taxation increase. And then Fairview, which is south of Castlegar, seeing a 3% taxation increase.
Can I just add one thing? Right
Yes.
now we're working, there's an area called Solstrom Road. That's one sort of area where the residents are finding themselves unable to get insurance on their homes because of the distance they are from the fire halls. So we're working to include them with the Fairview contract. And so it's going to increase the cost of the contract, but those people need to, they need to have insurance for their houses. So that's just an FYI for the people in the room and online.
Okay, thank you, Director Vinograd. We'll talk a little bit about transit. There's two transit services that Castlegar and I+J participate in. So 237 is the service directly related to the Castlegar area, including for a defined area and defined J. So overall initiatives are changes to mitigate safety concerns, increased service to South Castlegar, a development of a transit maintenance facility in Janelle, UPass for students, spring fair review, as well as a system-wide performance review. And so this service, so it's not quite the right name down there, is seeing a 6.5% taxation increase and an operating cost increase from a contract with BC Transit and service changes.
Yeah, just,
Yes.
sorry, one quick point. The safety audit, some of those concerns were around the pickup in the Blueberry area that the trucks, or the buses, I should say, not trucks, couldn't safely continue on. That's why the routes have been changed, just if people were curious about what the safety portion of it was, so.
And we've been working on the U-Pass with for students at Selkirk. For as long as I've been, what, 15 years, forever. And basically the student body has to vote on, we're at the point where we're getting towards a vote of the students. I think it's in September of this coming year, or is it even a little later than that? But basically what they do is they vote to include an increase to their tuitions to include a U-Pass, like so that they can access any of the transit services anytime. And this has been a work in progress for so long, but it's getting to the point, we get more use of our transit services, but then there's also this additional influx of income because every student then pays for that as part of their tuition, but then they get their U-Pass. So that's exciting for me because we've been waiting so long for this. Yeah, but it could be a really good thing. We'll see what the students say.
Okay, thank you. Next is S239. So again, some service level changes, system-wide service level review by BC Transit, as well as a transit fare review in the queue. So this service is seeing a 41% average increase in taxation this year, primarily driven by last year's budget had a substantial level of reserves that were used to reduce taxation. So a lot of those reserves, where they came from, was during the pandemic years. The province provided a fair level of funding to keep transit services going. Those were put in reserves and were largely used up last year. Also increased asset management and BC Transit costs, and then some reapportionment contributions. So what reapportionment is, a couple of years ago, the regional district embarked on a project to review all of the, I think, 4 or 5 transit services. It was really difficult to really understand who was paying for what and why, and to look into the fairness and equity of the taxation across the services. So a consultant was hired and did a report, presented a few options, and then through the West Transit Committee, they selected a method they thought was most fair, and that sort of moved increases and funding and taxation around through the various areas. So this service seeing 41% increase. So area I and J through the formulas is seeing a larger increase, about 52%, whereas Castlegar, due to reapportionment, is seeing a smaller increase of about 30%.
Yeah, that 52% looks like a monster increase, but the cash increase, the additional taxation is $6,536 in area I, which is about $2.50 a resident of area I. So I really fought this reapportionment because it has a component in it in the formula with respect to opportunity, but when I kept looking at what is the total ridership, like how many residents of area I use this, but ultimately what happened is this is what the board voted for, and just like I did the math, it's like the increase is $6,536 across all ratepayers, so $2.50.
So what is the I live in area I, so I've never seen a bus there. So what is the transit for?
The bus, this service S239, this is the number 99 bus, correct? And this is the busiest bus line, and it goes from Nelson to Castlegar. And
We don't have a stop in Brilliant.
there in Brilliant,
We get to.
It doesn't go into Brilliant. That's interesting, yeah. I don't
So
think
we're
they're,
taxed on something we don't even have
well,
access
it's
to.
all of area I pays. Glade has, Glade across the river has no bus service. Sure Acres doesn't have a bus service that goes into town. Pass Creek, the service only runs along the main highway, so if you're living like miles away from it, so that's why I was fighting to reapportion it, because the biggest users, the biggest amount of ridership is within the city of Castlegar, not within I+J.
Oh,
So you could see, so that's where I kind of thought of it. Then when we looked at the actual financial impact of it, it seems percentage wise, it's a high increase. But what we were paying before in Area I for transit was 12,000 a year, which is not very much for what we have.
Direct to Dave, Doc.
Yeah.
Is there a bus stop at the car park along the highway?
Yeah,
But I wasn't sure where that bus would go.
that's the 99.
That's the 9. Okay.
That's the 9. It goes through. Yeah.
I noticed it when I was meeting Director Castlegar, and I
Yeah.
meant to ask you that.
I did a funny thing once. I live in Thrums, so I stood outside the Thrums market waiting for the bus. Had so many friends go by. And I'm standing with I'm going to my office in Trail, right? And I got all my books and everything. So all these people are stopping. Are you okay? Do you need a ride? I says, no. I says, like I'm undercover. I'm going on the bus. I want to see how the hub works at Selkirk. I want to take it to Trail and so I do that occasionally. Now I've learned to go incognito so that people
Gotcha.
well, I mean, would it be unthinkable to give a stop to the communities that don't have service? I mean, if we're paying for it anyways,
it's everything in the transit service is based on the formulas are very clear. So the minute you take a detour into anywhere, it's like it's time. And then all of a sudden you need another bus. So when you add it all up, the cost of a new bus, another bus, is just unbelievably expensive. So that's how it works out. So it's like, we don't have huge ridership in area on the buses. So it's really more in the municipalities, but we do have some riders, but like I said, it looks like a monster increase, but it's when you look at the actual amount we pay, 12,000, now 19,000, it's not. So that's why I kind of stopped.
I guess the one exception would be the Slocan Valley has fairly high ridership.
Yeah.
For a rural area.
Yes.
So but
There's a bus stop every 400 meters from all right through area I along Highway 3. There's a bus, it's on a pole.
just have to get to it.
Yeah. But you see with the U-Pass, so students are living there.
You guys, I'm waiting patiently here. Do you see me?
Oh, sorry, we didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, Director Hennegraff.
I had my
Sorry.
hand up and I was waving my hand, but I wasn't gonna stand up and start doing this. So, the other thing that's going on right now, part of the reason, the apportionment is high for Area J is because at the moment, Selkirk College is in Area J, but there's a move afoot, and to be clear, as the electoral area director, I don't have a lot of influence on this, but the move is to move Selkirk College as part of the city of Castlegar. And so I've said, and the city's clear on my position on this, is that if the reason the apportionment is high is because of Selkirk College, when Selkirk College moves to the city, that cost should shift to the city as well instead of staying with Area J. So that is a chapter that's being written right now as we speak.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons for moving to the new apportionment formulas. It's easier to make those adjustments than the old formulas. This would be a very or more challenging exercise. So last note with transit, the good news note, Health Connections funding through IHA is seeing an annual increase of 33% for the next 3 years. Okay, so that's it for the services. We'll quickly go through the pie charts for what a half dozen or more different sub areas in Castlegar I and J, just to show visually what the taxation looks like and where taxation goes. So let's start with the city of Castlegar. So just about half the bill is related to the arena service. Sorry, yes, so 2222. And you add in aquatic center and you're at about 75% regional district services for the city of Castlegar are this facility here. And then next comes transit, waste, and general admin. So next we have area I, Thrums, Pass Creek Glade, RDCK tax bill, fire protection running at about 35-40%. Aquatic and arena making up another almost 30% or 25%, and then everything else in much smaller chunks, including transit and waste services.
Yeah, you can see our biggest bills in I is fire protection, then recreation, between the aquatic center and then library. That people don't realize how, we asked the library board how many area I residents have a library card at the library, because we were looking for that number, and it was something like 1,200. So that's pretty big. Use of the library, but that is like, don't realize that's I think that's our fourth largest contribution that we make.
Included in waste.
Garbage dumps.
The dump
The landfill,
and recycling.
recycling, organic services, and then transportation of waste from transfer stations.
I've always wondered where did we transfer it to?
It's all going to go to Shannon.
Yeah, so there's two dumps in the regional, two landfills in the regional district, Udishanya and then in Creston. So the Cusp used to have one, and that's closing or closed this year. And so it's the cost to run a landfill is just constantly increasing due to regulations and so it's consolidating to two landfills, even though there's more transportation costs, overall decreases the cost of waste management.
So we're noticing the landfills in the West Resource Recovery Service, and we pay one of the lowest rates per thousand compared to Central Waste and to
Correct. East.
So basically that's being looked at as well, because we get all the revenue from all the garbage company. So, and our rate per thousand has been very low. So that's under review, and there's some areas they're looking at saying, we've got to reapportion that. It was kind of like the transit stuff. And so we're kind of working through that. That's not going to happen for a while, but we are, and I think our landfill is scheduled to last how much longer?
50 to 70 years.
50 to 70 years in ocean. So.
And that's managed by the RDCK.
Yes.
Yes.
And now they're looking at expanding it. Is that right?
There's
a grant of not a survey, but
some
being
planning.
done.
Yeah, planning's in process to add some more transfer bins, and as well as a second scale. So right now there's only one scale, so you have to go in and out on the same scale. So they'll add a second scale so you can, which will greatly reduce the congestion at that facility.
They're looking at a second entrance as well, and I believe they're looking at an eco depot at Udashenya as part of the change, which is something people have really been asking for a lot.
This was one of my questions from earlier that was on a slide. What is an eco depot? What actually is that?
That's where people can take things like used oil, paint, anyone else can jump in. Those are the two that come to mind for me. It's, you know, Deb, how often we have, those, you know, where you can take things like paint and oil and that. We do it at the complex once a year. To round up that stuff. This would be a permanent facility that takes those things and either recycles or disposes of them properly. And right now, the Nelson Leafs Depot, Nelson is, I believe, the only one in the RDCK.
Yeah, and how does that compare to the one that's in the Return It place at the top of Sherbrooke Hill?
That's tiny compared, this is everything.
But is it an
doesn't-
eco depot?
Sorry to interrupt, Deb. It isn't considered an eco depot because it doesn't take the hazardous materials, but it does take everything that's available at curbside and the stuff that isn't glass, plastic, all without having to go out to drive out to Shenya now.
Yeah.
And very unscientifically, I happened to be there on Friday when the driver was picking up. That's his weekly thing. And what he was picking up was 20 bins that I would say were double the size of apple bins, you know, the old style apple bins. And he said that's an average week of all the mixed waste that is being diverted from the landfill and is also tracked and made sure that it is properly recycled, because we're on, help me, Andy, what they call that, from Recycle BC, which heavily subsidizes that portion of it as long as it is tracked to make sure that it is being disposed of properly, which it is in British Columbia.
We always complain.
The other thing they take at the Return It Depot is electronics, whether it's TVs, computers, printers, vacuum cleaners, which they don't take at Udashenya. You have to go to the Return It Depot for that.
Light bulbs and batteries too, Director Hanegraaff. Yeah. They're very busy every day now.
We're still trying to get the producers to subsidize recycling a lot more. And we've been fighting for how, I don't know how long we've been fighting on getting the producers to subsidize the recycling, because it's not cheap, right? And eco depots are labor intensive. And the Nelson Leafs, I mean, they use that to help fund the Leafs, right? So, yeah, it's a service that we probably should have ASAP here as well.
Well, I would say the lobbying did pay off. Was it last year or year before? There was actually a substantial increase in the subsidies through Recycle BC. Fair, like I think at least 30%.
Is that from the invoice you sent them asking for $1 million?
Well, it wasn't mine.
I thought it was your idea.
No, for those of you that, I'm not gonna take credit for something that I didn't, that's not originally mine. It was a former chair of the board, John Kettle, and he was our chair. He said, you know, he was, I work cowboy hat stuff, and he says, we're gonna send the government a bill, you know, and he says, and then somehow we came up with $1 million, right? And so that's where I got, and saying, hey, remember, we actually made motions to do this, right? So, but it's that kind, sometimes theatrics can help a little bit, but at the end of the day, you know, that's a headline grabber, right? You know, like, buck up, pay your fair share, right? And so the lobbying did work. So that's good. So not my original idea.
Okay, so area brilliant. So fire protection, arena, aquatic center. Brilliant has a street lighting service. I'm just trying to see if transit is actually there. That's going back to your question about paying for it and not being there. I don't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not, oh no, it is.
It's there.
Cooking West.
Yeah, everybody pays.
Yeah, but a very, very small slice.
Yeah.
That green one right at the bottom.
But that pie chart is really interesting because you can see all the services that we have in area I, some of which are standalone, like Brilliant Street Lighting is a standalone, right?
Yeah.
But it's like our total annual street lighting bill for Brilliant is, where is it here? 11,300 a year. And then in we have Whiteman subdivision as well. That one is less, but we've got a surplus there. But so that's what it costs to maintain the street lighting.
What is community sustainability?
I'll let you deal with that one.
Sorry,
Yes, so that's service,
sorry, I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
that's 105. So that's various sustainability services. A lot of it is grant funded. So projects to do with both some climate related projects and some just sort of natural habitat and things like that.
It was created, I was there when it was created.
Okay.
It was created because we needed a place. We get these grants, right? So where should this go? And so then it could go into general admin or rural admin. And then, but some of the grants applied to both rural admin and municipalities. And so we ended up creating the service that almost everybody was involved in. But over the years, different areas are opting out. So then it's becoming more expensive for the remaining areas. Like in area I, we pay for community sustainability, it's $13,815.26. But this is where we do all of our, for example, our watershed analysis and work and priorities. The watershed governance project runs through community sustainability. So that's the kind of work that happens within that service. But staff is looking, and I know Yab is looking at can we kind of, do we really need this service in the future is a question that we're going to be looking at over the next few years, correct?
If you look on, I actually just pulled it up on our website and it does have like a list of the 4 or 5 different kind of key areas of initiatives. And if you click on them, you can kind of get a really good sense of
Yeah, you should
a little more.
You should read what they.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I can do
Yeah.
that. So some of the initiatives under climate action, for example, are the climate action reports that have just recently been done, and the climate action program. Again, I'm getting into the details.
Yeah.
Under community resilience is things like the wildfire risk reduction, fire smart neighborhood energy preparedness program, household and family emergency preparedness, and community recovery resources. There's something called grid resilience. Lardo Valley links grid to.
That's their power grid. Their
Their
power grid. They have a
bioenergy resources, and then Crescent and District Community Complex solar panel initiative that certainly I know Craig could talk a little bit more about. And then a home energy efficiency, so a home safe program, residential sustainability, checklists, training, water protection and conservation, that kind of all seems to fall
It's a
under the category. Yeah. But there is a whole dedicated webpage if you're interested.
Yeah,
So it's like not somewhere where like a water board could go and ask for funding for an emergency generator or something.
No, but technically, if you're grant funding and it probably, if they had nowhere else to fit in it, it might end up in community sustainability.
anyway, just to let you know that Area J has given notice, you have to wait 2 years to get out of a service, but, Area J has, given notice to leave the Community Sustainability Action Committee.
Their eyes haven't done. And it's still hanging in there. But there comes a tipping point where the community sustainability isn't sustainable for the remaining. So then what will end up happening is that it will have its kind of natural demise with a reallocation of each of those things that Trish read into some other service.
Okay, thank you. We'll jump over to Shore Acres. So the difference between Area Brilliant and Shore Acres is the taxation for the aquatic center. So Brilliant is taxed for the aquatic center. Shore Acres isn't, just the arena. And so a large portion of its taxation then is the fire protection. Then over to Robson, Area J. Here we have the arena and aquatic center, just about 30%. Fire protection, about 40%. And then the rest making up about 10% or smaller chunks of that pie. So Ushanya, I'm just going to jump back in here. Again, aquatic center, arena, about 40%. Fire protection, in this case, about 25%. And then the rest of the services at about 10% or less, of which refuse or resource recovery is the largest. Area J Fairview, so south of town, fire protection contract about 30%. The arena and aquatic center about 40%. And then out in Deer Park with no fire service, the aquatic center and arena just over 50%. And then a bunch of services making up 10% or less of the share. And what I should have mentioned, and I'll jump back, is on the left-hand side of the screen is the tax bill per $100,000 of home value. So Castlegar at about 135.
That's only the
RDC portion.
taxes.
Yeah, which is basically, again, the aquatic center, the arena. And then once you add fire protection, the other services, you jump into the mid 200s per 100,000. So if you have a home value of $600 or so, you're going to be about $1,700 property tax bill. And so the rest are fairly similar, kind of in the high 200s, mid to low 200s. Robson up just over 300 per 100,000. Budget in the low 200s, and then Fairview in the mids, and then Area J Deer Park without the fire protections, about $170 per 100,000 home value. So that's at the end of our presentation. So this presentation will be available on the website or the engagement site tomorrow, or it should be uploaded tomorrow under the on the right hand side where all the meeting dates are. This presentation will be available, and as well later this week we should have a revised version of the budget out. So this budget's dated February 26th. So there have been a number of revisions brought forward since then, the last 3 weeks. So there will be revised budget going out with the agenda on Thursday and also available on the website.
So in the revised budget, what are we seeing? Are we seeing an uptick or a reduction?
Really depends on the service. Most cases will be a reduction, I think, including S100.
Mhm.
We'll see a bit of a reduction. So that 22% increase will be a bit lower than that. So no wholesale changes, just some dollars here and there.
Would you factor in the S222 roof project?
That's going to depend on Tricia and Craig and what they see the budgetary change being, and if we have enough information to do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we have to be in a position to. So if it doesn't happen tomorrow, then the last chance we need to do that is next Thursday's board meeting.
Okay, so this iteration, it
Yeah.
might be a little bit premature to factor that in, but then next the March board meeting
Yeah.
will be the last opportunity for adjustments.
Correct.
Okay, so that's where, and did you, and I'm sorry, did you do kind of what our percentage?
Yes.
You did all that.
That's up in this package.
Okay, so I just from area I, I'm still looking at ways of reducing taxation even further. I spoke at other meetings about the 2% of our taxation is actually $40,000 that's going to the city Castlegar and J service. And basically that money would be paid back if the referendum succeeded, but my concern was that if it didn't succeed, then the cost, we bear that cost. So 2% of area I taxation right now. So was the number in what you showed today, the area I was, what was the, I just want to make sure that I'm quoting. No, it's just the percentage increased overall.
The net increase area I 3.5%.
So 3.5.
So fairly low.
So 2% of that is that part of that $280,000 for the work on the new potentially new arena subject to referendum approval. But I think I have a way of reducing taxation a little bit, so that I will have a motion for the March meeting, which I'll send you here as soon as I just confirm a couple of things. So area I taxation will be even less than that. So just so you.
I do have some questions.
Sure.
I can come up. Do you have any questions? I've got quite a few. Do you have any other ones? No. Okay. So first, I just want to be able to be heard online. I really want to thank you for this format, all of you, because your peers over in Kootenay Boundary have not invited questions at all. They've gone to a World Cafe format. You know, they're hiving people off onto separate tables. So there is not this collective conversation. And so I really appreciate this and thank you.
Sorry, Deb, I hate to
Yeah.
interrupt, but what did you call it? A rogue what format?
World Cafe.
Oh, well, see, and I heard rogue something, so.
Well, maybe that was Freudian.
Annie, are you deep sea diving and your ears are plugged? Is that what you're doing?
I think I've had too much sun today.
So and you're back here somewhere, the waterfall graph.
Mhm.
I've never seen one of those before. And when I looked at it quickly, it looks like Rec leads it by 20. That one just behind there. That one there.
This one, yes.
Yeah.
So can you tell me that? Because I think
So rec is, the major rec facilities are 28% of total RDCK taxation.
okay.
Yeah.
And so how does that relate to the waterfall? Like I
Well,
don't understand.
waterfall graph now says is the gray bar you can't really see on the far right, says That's the total taxation increase in the regional district, is the 2.8 million for 25 over 26. So what a waterfall graph says is the blue bars are increases in taxation, orange is down. So it says, you know, what caused taxation to go up and what caused it to go down to end up the 2.8 million. So you'll see the this here lines up with that.
Yeah.
So it's basically just shows the allows you to it's one of the few graphs that'll let you show both positives and negatives to get to a total.
So those numbers on the top, that's in the 100,000.
That's $100,000 increase in taxation
Like, so it's $662,000
across the three
all the rec. Okay.
the main rec center.
Right, okay, all right. So the next question was for Craig, if he's still, is he still there?
Oh, yeah.
And it was about the boat ramp in Robson, the $10,000 charge to replace like 6 boards. And, I mean, I go down there a lot. Some work needs to be done, but to me, that seems excessive. And I'm wondering, you know, I know a lot of handy people that use that boat ramp, and, you know, there's a lot of discussion all the time about, you know, volunteerism and then the risk of it. And what ends up happening that I see is that volunteers are kind of shut out of participating in maintaining their own things in their communities. And they just end up with their taxes going up and up and up. So I would like to know if there is any way that 10,000 could be reduced to the cost of materials with some of those Robson folks kicking in labor and expertise.
Thanks for the question. We actually have opportunities to explore that in a number of other areas. In fact, the South Slocan Schoolhouse has a large community initiative underway there, and we also have some volunteerism happening in places like Ryandale, etc. It is true that we have to be mindful of our role in local government of building and producing assets that have a life cycle that's commensurate with certainly the capital cost, but also the expected use from the taxpayers. But having said that, there is a way for us to manage sites and projects with volunteer labor and expertise, especially if there are skilled tradespeople in the area. We can look at that. But I think the other part is that the budget, I'm not exactly sure what the actual budget is entirely for, if it is just a few repair a few boards, if there's other scope to that. But I think, Deb, if you wanted to, I could ask the parks manager to reach out to you, and we could start to organize something and coordinate and leverage some of those volunteer hours.
Okay.
So, and one of the things that is really cost effective is how we maintain our trails. Because we've got Friends of Parks and Trails,
Yeah.
and they do so much work. Without that, we could never, if we have to pay for all of that, we would never be able to afford our trail network.
Right. Okay,
And,
thank you.
sorry, can I interrupt just for a sec? Sorry, Deb. If you want to loop me in on that too, if there's any way I can help with that, I'm more than happy to involve myself.
Great, okay, thank you. So I guess really the main thing is recreation, right? It always is every year. And 2 years ago, and last year, I asked the question. I think you asked it not too long ago. And I don't know if it's been resolved, but does this rec center know who its clients are? What are the demographics of the people that are coming here? It was an unknown 2 years ago. Progress apparently has been being made, but do you have a demographic profile of the people who use the complex?
What do you mean by demographic?
Well, like where do they come from? How old are they? What do they do? Like just,
Oh, yeah.
how can you build programs without knowing who your audience is, who your clients are, who your customers are? And that was definitely an unknown 2 years ago, because that new system you got, you thought would be useful for giving some information. And it turned out it wasn't helpful at all. And then Craig, I don't know if you're still there, there was that Canada Trail app program that the board paid for 30 grand, I think, that was there was talks that supposed to monitor the trails and say where the people were coming from that were using it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I know
And
what
there
you're
was
talking about.
talk about maybe installing it at the door to see who is coming in, but did that ever work? What was on the trails? What was the outcome of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that is data that was collected for the parks, trails and water access strategy, and that we can report on that when that report, as Director Hanegraaff pointed out, comes in the spring. And I think it's a really good question to circle back to that one and see, because that is a benefit to us to see that data. Certainly, if we can source it or mine it in any new form, it's going to be able to inform who's on our trails and when. It's really good information to have.
Okay, so there is no report yet. There is no outcome of that.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, that committee's meeting again, I want to say week after next. I could check my calendar. And so the final report isn't quite ready, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Let me be clear about that.
Okay. All right. Well,
I thought we had data some time ago. I remember a report where we had some data, but this would be updated data than from what we had before. We did have there was a report, but that was years ago.
oh,
It was a different system.
No, this is
Yeah, was
more, this is within, I want to say the last, it's been going, I want to say for the last year and a half, we've been working
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah.
There have been people in the parks, at trailhead, that kind of thing, collecting information. I honestly don't remember the results off the top of my head, and I'm not going to even try to guess because that would be ill-advised.
It should give us a clear picture.
Yeah. So I think that my question really, it stems from the programs. And last year I mentioned the programs in this ring. The last year I mentioned about the reporting on the programs and how it's very vague. I would like to see, and I said it last year, I'd like to see for every program that the rec center does, this arena, whatever you want to call it, every program would like to see, what it costs to run the program, which is labor, the cost of the area being used, the materials, whatever, all the expenses, and then the funds it brought in, and then the bottom line. And I know it's not going to pay for itself. They're not meant to, but there has to be some benchmark of programs that, hey, this is costing way too much money. Like, we cannot subsidize this program to that extent. Or, hey, look at this one over here, Aquafit. Look at how well that is doing. It pays for itself. So I think that analysis, program by program by program, for me would, I don't know how you can run this place without it. How can you make decisions without it? How can you know if you're carrying on a program that is a complete, money pit, as opposed to one that actually you could promote because it's popular, because it actually doesn't, siphon out from the bottom line. And as a person, I support the subsidized, the accessibility, or whatever it's called. My criticism of the cheer program stands, but what I see as a taxpayer is a slippery slope of the programs, just like the library. Like they've gone from being a library to being a warming center, to being this, to being that, all of these social driven programs. And I see that in these facilities. And, if you had a referendum and every taxpayer said, yes, that's what we want to do, then the majority wins. But I don't think that we build the arena and the pool, to not be financially responsible. So anyway, back to you. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So is there any more understanding of who the customers are for this facility?
So I'm gonna say yes and no, but I want to answer a couple of other things you said, because I'm not sure if, like, are you aware of our fees and charges policy?
I attend most of your meetings.
It's one that the reason I ask is that one is that it's the fees and charges schedule is reviewed every year. The policy itself is not necessarily reviewed every year, but the policy is what guides the cost recovery of all of our services. So in that document, which it's online, I can send it to you if you like, make it easy to find. But in that document, it actually outlines the guidelines and the foundation of how our recovery of services are laid out for us. So when you look at the services and look at the cost recovery, the check and balance is against the policy, not so much on the money it's gaining or not gaining. It's everything on how we price programs is governed by that policy. So that might just be a missing link in thinking that part through. So it might just be a resource for you to consider. The other thing we spent,
So Trish, before you move on there, it is useful that fees and charge, because what we looked at, to what level do you subsidize?
and for what types of services?
For what types of services? So if you have a commercial entity that wants to lease this room, for example, should they have a subsidy? And so there's categories in that, and it was really, I mean, how much time, Trish, I think it was before I bet you we spent years working, debating, working through it, like, so how, different groups and how much should they be because everything's a subsidy, because we all pay into this and we know what we pay. But the key thing is but at the end of the day, like where are the priorities for subsidization? And the leisure access program is one component of that. So what Trish is talking about would be a really interesting document and report to understand exactly how we arrive. And we had facilitators come in to actually do a whole bunch of work with us on how we did this. It was a painful process because there's a lot of there's a lot of value based, but the facilitators were really good. Were good at helping us understand, and then all of the algorithm, I call it an algorithm, was developed for every single type of group, what the charges should be, what the full cost is for that particular service, and then whatever it is, aquafit. Like you could actually, I think it's that granular that you could actually see what I think you're looking for.
Like the cost recovery on a group fitness class is completely different than the cost recovery on personal training compared to a youth program, so they're all different.
So maybe the part that I'm missing,
And one statement.
Yeah.
I may not be using this center as much as the taxes I'm paying, but I am very happy it's here because it creates a society that's healthy and cooperating and participating in the society. And if I have to subsidize that, I'm willing to do it.
And that's why it's the number one expense. And this is how much we subsidize.
So it's.
Thank you for that, because it is very important to hear that from the public, that there is support like that, so we all appreciate that,
Mhm.
for sure.
Sorry, just.
Oh, no, thank you.
Cost effective is one thing, but society effective is another thing.
Mm-hmm. So maybe what I'm missing is the breakdown in that 662,000. How much of that is actually for the bricks and mortar? How much of that expense, that money goes to that? And how much goes to putting on the programs? And you know, I don't know. And
I get what you're saying.
you know what I
I
mean?
do,
Like,
I understand.
because they're two totally different things. You have no control over the bricks and mortar, what it costs to maintain.
What you're talking about is the capital cost and replacement cost and asset management versus the operation.
Versus the operate, that's the word I was looking for.
yeah.
Because, and sorry, just one more thing. I mean, I listen to the reports that come to the rec commissions, all of them. And for me, they're too vague. They say, well, there was an uptick and it's not quite back to pre-pandemic levels, and all of these very unmathematical. I would like to hear percentages. I'd like to say we're up 10% from last year. We're down 5%, you know, and that for me gives perspective and context, not words, more numbers, more context that way. And that actually drives me a bit crazy, because that I don't know how you can, you know, as a director or as a commissioner, you obviously have more information than the verbal report that's given. But anyway, so
you're looking, I think we're searching for this very similar thing. We're looking, understanding the algorithm, and then understanding the numbers, and everything needs to be data driven. And so then, and that's what staff, we've challenged staff with this, and they know. And I think, Trish, this is your responsibility now, correct?
It is.
It is, because Trish is replacing Joe.
oh,
So the key thing, you're talking to the right person. I'm
Right.
glad Trish is here, because I think Trish is hearing this, and I think we'll get there. I'm just concerned how long it's going to take, but we're moving the needle in that direction. Would that be an accurate statement?
I hear you, Deb. Like, if you spend a lot of time trying to figure out the appropriate amount of information to put in reports to make it palatable by the people that are reading them, and make it of interest, and make it actually something that is valuable to staff to put together. Like, it kind of has to serve a bunch of things. But there's a couple of reports that I'd be interested in your feedback on, because there's one, the leisure access, and it's one of hundreds of programs that we offer. But that report that goes to the all rec meeting, it doesn't go to the individual commissions because it's a RDCK-wide service. But the detail that goes into that program to evaluate its effectiveness, the services that the people it's serving, the cost of running it, the programs people are participating in, like, there is so much information in that. And that report, I'd just be interested in your feedback on it, because it takes us 3 days, solid days, to put that one report together. But it's one that we enjoy putting together because it celebrates something, but it is a tremendous amount of work to put together. So it might even be program areas that might be more of interest that we can focus on. So I'd be interested in your feedback, part one. But back to your original question of the whole, who are we serving and what are we, like, do we know our demographics of people? We certainly know a lot about people, but we took a report to commission back in, and I could find it for you if it's not top of mind, but the whole concept of the geographical locations of where people are coming from. There's a 6-page report that went to commission specifically on this topic, highlighting the challenges of what the ask is versus the financial commitment to get the detail of what the ask was. and asked for the direction on whether they wanted us to go there. And the answer was no, we're not going any further than what we can do with information that's currently in our database. And it was just felt to not be useful at this point. Doesn't mean it won't be at some point in time, or it doesn't mean that one day as technology evolves and GIS gets integrated into all of our systems and we can pinpoint exactly where people are coming from and when they set foot in different facilities or venues. We're just not there yet, and the cost is prohibitive. So
This is a concern, and this again, Yev's department, like, when we looked at Aggresso, right, the financial software program, we had experts come in and tell us, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could add this module to it, and you could do whatever. And frankly, I don't think it lived up to its billing. And the same thing in the rec service. Like you acquire some software and then what do? Do you have to program the modules yourself, or can you get a shelf ready module that you plug in and then that will, operate an algorithm to get you the data, but the data is as good as what we're feeding into the software, right? So I think we could say, are we super happy with our rec services software programming? Probably.
we'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, that's hard enough to rate it.
That's pretty good.
And then for Yev,
Well, it's not that.
yes, I probably go 6.5, but for Yev on Aggresso, like, if we have to do this again, would we be doing the same thing? Probably not, right?
How do you measure your program effect on society at large, whether it be health, mental health?
Very difficult. Yeah.
That is what you need to be doing.
Yeah, it's the $1 million question of recreation for 30 years that I've been in this field, where if we could measure the benefit on crime prevention, health, longevity, happiness, all of these factors, we'd be worth a lot of money and people would happily give us lots of money to provide services. But it's a very, very challenging soft service to provide. And so we spend a lot of time in the background actually figuring out how to communicate the benefits of the service, because we're selling it to people that use it, but we're actually also highly selling it to people that will never use it or don't have an interest in it, but still see the benefit in it. And that is a constant conversation for my entire career in the field. And it's a very difficult one. We actually find that those other partners like schools, police officers, social workers, all those services actually can speak a better language about the benefits our services provide than typically the providers of the service, because they're hearing that benefit and going, my kids need to have an opportunity to go somewhere after school and the rec center is the place to go. Or they need a drop-in youth program to do something between when school ends in Salmo and when the fitness center opens. What can you do for us? And so it's an interesting dilemma that I've yet to see solved effectively, but it is definitely one that we beat that drum constantly.
But Trish, you asked Deb for some feedback on the leisure access program. I think when we worked on that, that kind of is what you're thinking of, is that has.
I was thinking a bit more specifically on how the report is structured, like
I've seen the report. Yeah, I have actually seen it. But I'll look at it again.
The fees and charges, is if you haven't delved into that.
Yeah, and I will do that as well. And I haven't looked at that.
Yeah.
And you might be interested in this other one, just from this being a topic of interest to you. You might be interested. I could go back and find the month of the meeting. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I could find it.
It seems like it wasn't that long. Could have been 2 years ago, but it does.
I want to say it was in the fall of 2025, but
yeah, maybe last year.
It wasn't that long.
Not that long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Deb, for you keep us on our toes. No, I'm serious, because your commitment to, all the meetings that you attend and all the work that you do, that's really important. to have people like you who are there, who take a really keen interest and who ask the questions that we should be thinking about. Sometimes until they're asked, they're not even, they're not on anyone's mind. And then when you ask those questions, I know as a technical analytical, I love the questions you ask. You say, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like, why are we doing it this way? Right? But it's, I think we're accountable to our ratepayers. That's really important. We also provide a really big sort of services and amenities in terms of the social values. That's a big piece. And that's not always financially quantifiable as much as some would like, right? But altogether, if we have kind of it ends up being a balance. And that's what the fees and charges was like. What is the balance? How do you figure out like, and a business would say, hey, we pay huge taxes. But at the end of the day, it's a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
Right. It's not, vulnerable youth that need access, right? Or ministry care, they need 100% subsidy. Right?
So, yeah, I just wanted to add to what Andy is saying, and that I appreciate both Deb and the other woman in the room, as well as we have Doug online. I don't know if Doug has any questions or not. I think it's, a bit of a shame when you look at the size of the population of areas I and J, and to a lesser extent the city, because they do their own budgeting stuff, and I know they get a bigger turnout for that than what typically shows up for the RDCK budget meetings. But considering how important this is, I wish that the turnout was higher. I really do. And I appreciate people taking time out of their evening to show up to this meeting and listen and ask questions.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or comments?
Just another thank you to staff, staff online, staff here. Really important to have you here, and really happy. And yeah, like he's getting seasoned. And how many years have you? How many years? This is your third year?
This is I'll be 4 years with the RD in April.
Okay, so but fourth time the budget presentations, because so this is, and how many more meetings? Just
Two more.
Two more. That's not too bad. So he's surviving, so that's good. So thank you all to all the staff that are online and here, from all of us as the elected officials. Without you, we're rudderless, right? Like, or maybe without us, you're rudderless. I think maybe that's the other way.
And I'd just like to add that I too appreciate everybody that takes the time to come. And you, Deb, I see you at the meetings, you ask questions, and if we can't answer them, we look to find answers for you, right? And I just appreciate you being there. Appreciate anyone who comes to the meetings, because I think our Recreation Commission has moved a long way in this term. We don't always agree. We don't have to always, we won't always agree. But when we walk out of the room, we still show respect at all times. And I think that's a huge thing, and it's the way it should be done and operated. We're allowed to disagree. Sometimes it's fun.
And I'd be remiss is that the commitment that the commissioners made coming to Area I, to all 5 community halls, and hearing firsthand, not through me, what the voices of our communities were. And they, it was resounding kind of
It was a resounding, really nice to see you. Don't come back.
No, no money for you.
Yeah, so sort of that, but
It's a bit, not from everybody, not from everybody, but it was like
it was
pretty
a
much.
really good experience and a good experiment.
Yeah.
You know, to get, you know, when you get out there and talk to people who take the time to come to meetings and get out from behind their keyboards in a lot of places and actually talk to people, it's really important.
And good turnouts, right? And
Yeah.
And then it's not Andy Pandy's perspective, right? Because it kind of, for a while there, it was like, well, that's Andy. Hold on a sec, folks. I got 2,570 constituents, right? Like, please come and talk to them.
We did determine it was not the little man behind the curtain.
They sure did.
Okay, well, on that note, I'll,
Hey,
You never
listen,
heard that one at any other meeting, eh?
I want to be really clear about one thing. We can call Director Davidoff Andy Pandy. Don't anyone try calling me Henny Penny.
I know better than that.
Eddie, I would never criticize you in any way, shape, or form, because I'm gonna get it back tenfold, you know.
okay, well,
Okay, are we done?
Thanks, Jeff.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Have a nice evening.
Easy for you to say, Henny.